My parents kicked me out to let my sister move in, so I bought my own house and left them begging for my forgiveness later. I'm a 25-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one in my family, the calm, predictable kid who followed every rule like it was carved into stone. It wasn't something anyone ever praised me for, it was just expected, like breathing. Meanwhile, my younger sister Lily moved through life like she was made of glass and gold at the same time, fragile enough to protect yet precious enough to indulge. My parents treated her like she deserved special treatment simply for existing, and the worst part is that she grew up believing it. I started contributing to the household bills when I was 18, quietly slipping money into the family account so the lights wouldn't get cut off or the fridge wouldn't stay empty. I still remember my dad saying, "You're the man of the house too now, this is what grown-ups do," while Lily was buying clothes she'd never wear and food she didn't even finish. I didn't complain. I told myself being dependable would eventually mean something. I told myself they'd see me, not just the version of me that held everything together in the background, but the son who cared enough to sacrifice. Most nights I'd come home from long shifts at the warehouse, the smell of metal and machine oil still clinging to my clothes, only to find Lily sprawled on the couch complaining about her stressful day. My mom would rush to bring her snacks while telling me, "Don't step too heavily, she's had a rough time." A rough time doing what? Breathing. I kept swallowing it, telling myself it wasn't worth fighting about. But deep down, I felt the shift, that slow, cold distance where Lily's mistakes became misunderstandings, her irresponsibility became just a phase, and my sacrifices became invisible. I didn't know it then, but the loyalty I poured into this family was about to be repaid with the cruelest decision they'd ever make. I've always known Lily had a way of bending the world around her, but as we got older, it became painfully clear just how far my parents would go to protect her from even the smallest consequence. She was 22 by then, floating from job to job the way some people changed playlists, never sticking with anything, always claiming the environment was too toxic, or the manager didn't understand her creative energy. Meanwhile, my parents would sigh deeply and say, "She's sensitive, she just needs the right place to shine." Sensitive. That was their favorite excuse. I remember walking into the house one afternoon, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, and hearing her complain that the family car stressed her out because it didn't have the luxury features she wanted. My mom actually apologized to her for it. Apologized. Then she turned to me and said, "Maybe you can help her save up for something nicer," as if it was my responsibility to upgrade her life while I was barely keeping mine together. Almost every conversation in our house revolved around her, her day, her passion projects, her emotional stability, her need for a vacation after working 3 whole weeks. I'd sit at the dinner table listening to my parents hype up her enormous potential, while any achievement of mine, getting Employee of the Month, finishing a semester with good grades, was met with a nod and, "That's nice." It was like breathing air no one realized I needed. But the thing that really stuck with me happened one night when I overheard my parents whispering in the kitchen. My dad said, "We have to focus on Lily right now. He's fine. He always figures things out." As if reliability made me unworthy of care. I kept quiet, pretending their favoritism didn't sting, pretending I could handle being the dependable shadow while Lily was the fragile star. But something was shifting, something silent, slow, and heavy. And whatever it was building toward, I wasn't prepared for it. Things really started unraveling the night Lily burst into the house crying like the world had personally betrayed her. I was eating leftovers at the kitchen counter when she stormed past me, mascara streaked down her face like dripping ink. My parents sprinted after her, demanding to know what happened, and between frantic breaths she wailed, "I can't stay with him anymore. I need to come home." That was all it took, no details, no explanation, just tears. Tears were Lily's currency, and my parents always paid full price. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. My parents whispered constantly, their voices carrying through walls and hallways like ghosts. Every time I asked what was going on, they'd exchange looks and say things like, "We're figuring things out," or, "We'll talk when the time is right." I'd come home from work and find them sitting at the dining table with serious faces, only for the conversation to stop the instant I entered the room. It felt like I was living in a house full of locked doors. Then came the dinner. The one they asked me to be home for. The one where my stomach dropped the moment I saw how carefully the table was set, as if bad news needed nice plates. My dad cleared his throat and said, "We need to discuss living arrangements." My mom folded her hands like she was about to deliver a eulogy. I already felt a cold knot twisting in my chest. They danced around it at first, talking about Lily needing stability, about temporary adjustments, about family supporting family. Then, finally, my mom took a breath, looked at me with forced sympathy, and said the words that made the room tilt. "We need you to move out so Lily can have your room. She's too emotionally fragile to be on her own right now." I stared at them, fork halfway to my mouth, realizing in that moment just how disposable I really was. And that was only the beginning. I didn't react at first. I just sat there, staring at them, trying to process the fact that my own parents were asking me, no, telling me, to leave the home I had helped financially hold together for years. My dad kept talking as if this was some kind of reasonable negotiation, saying, "You're old enough to be on your own. It's time anyway." Meanwhile, Lily sat across from me with this faint little smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth, like she'd just won a competition I never even signed up for. I finally spoke. "I pay rent. I pay groceries. I pay the electric bill half the time. And you want me to move out, for her?" My mom gave this pitying sigh and said, "This is what family sacrifice looks like. Lily needs support right now, and you're strong. You can handle independence." There it was, the same logic they always used. My strength wasn't something to appreciate, it was something to exploit. The anger in my chest felt hot, sharp, and humiliating. "How long do I have?" I asked, my voice sounding colder than I expected. My dad exchanged a quick glance with my mom before saying, 2 weeks. "That should be enough for you to sort yourself out." Sort myself out. As if I was some college dropout needing to get my life together, not the son who literally kept this house running. I looked at Lily, who was now scrolling through her phone like this entire conversation was just background noise. She didn't even pretend to be uncomfortable. She just said, "Can you move your stuff fast? I really need that room." That sentence hit me harder than anything my parents said. In that moment, something hollow opened up inside my chest, this mix of betrayal, disbelief, and a quiet kind of heartbreak I didn't even know I could feel. I realized they weren't asking me to sacrifice. They were removing me because I was convenient to remove. And the worst part? They genuinely thought I'd just accept it. But the fallout from this decision hadn't even begun yet. The next 14 days felt like I was dissolving piece by piece, like every hour chipped away at whatever dignity I had left. I moved through the house quietly, packing my things into cheap cardboard boxes while trying not to fall apart. Every night when I dragged myself home from work, Lily was already making herself comfortable in her new space, flipping through paint samples and Pinterest boards like she was renovating a mansion instead of stealing my life. I heard her tell a friend on speaker, "Yeah, he's finally moving out. Thank God, this place needs better energy." I stood in the hallway listening, gripping the edge of a box until my knuckles went white. My parents avoided me like I was a problem they didn't want to feel guilty about. My mom started leaving chore lists on the fridge again: take out trash before you go, clean your bathroom, make sure you clear the garage. As if I was a tenant being checked out, not a son being pushed out. My dad would occasionally mutter things like, "You'll be fine," without ever looking directly at me. And I kept wondering, when had they stopped seeing me altogether? By the last week, I had nowhere lined up to live. I didn't have the luxury of time or savings for a security deposit plus first month's rent. So I swallowed my pride and asked a coworker if I could crash on his couch. When he said yes, it felt like someone finally threw me a life raft, but it also felt like failure. I kept hearing my mom's voice repeating, you can handle independence, like it was supposed to make being homeless feel empowering. The night before I left, I stood in my empty room, the walls bare, the air cold. I ran my hand across the dent in the wall from when I moved my desk in years ago, and for the first time in a long time, I let myself cry. Not loudly. Just this quiet, shaking release of everything I'd held in. Because tomorrow, I'd walk out of this house, and they wouldn't stop me. And the worst part? They didn't even try. Moving onto my coworker's couch felt like stepping into a life that didn't belong to me, a borrowed space, a borrowed pillow, a borrowed sense of safety. The first night, I lay there staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles, listening to the hum of the refrigerator down the hallway, trying to convince myself this was temporary. The air smelled faintly of coffee and old wood, nothing like the familiar scent of my room back home. But maybe that was a good thing. Maybe I needed the unfamiliar to finally see clearly. I threw myself into work, picked up every extra shift, said yes to every overtime hour, anything to keep my mind busy and my body too exhausted to think. My manager noticed my sudden willingness and asked, "Everything okay at home?" I swallowed the truth and muttered, "Just figuring things out." Which, in a twisted way, was exactly what I was doing. Figuring out who I was without being the family's safety net. The little money I saved from those long weeks became the beginning of something I didn't expect, stability. I rented a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint, creaky pipes, and a kitchen the size of a closet. On the first night there, I sat on the floor eating instant noodles from the pot and felt something I hadn't felt in years, quiet. Not loneliness. Just quiet. A space where no one belittled me, guilt-tripped me, or told me to sacrifice more because I was strong. For the first time, I began to understand that maybe strength wasn't doing everything for everyone. Maybe strength was choosing myself. My coworkers became the closest thing I had to a support system. They invited me out, checked on me, even helped me haul a cheap dresser up 3 flights of stairs. And as the weeks turned into months, something unexpected began happening inside me. This subtle shift, like the weight I'd carried for years, was no longer tied around my throat. I didn't know it yet, but the independence I was building quietly, stubbornly, was about to open a door I never imagined I'd walk through. And everything would change after that. The shift started small, just a few freelance projects trickling into my inbox from people who'd heard I was reliable, fast, and didn't flake on deadlines. I'd done small gigs before, but now each request felt like a lifeline, a chance to build something of my own. One night, after finishing a double shift, I opened my email to find 3 new clients waiting, each offering more money than I'd ever made from side work. I remember whispering to myself, "Is this real?" as I sat in my tiny kitchen, the flickering overhead light buzzing quietly above me. Work piled up fast, but for once, it wasn't overwhelming, it was empowering. I stayed up late editing projects, the glow of my laptop bouncing off the walls, my fingers flying over the keyboard while the city hummed softly outside my window. My friend Marco, the coworker who first helped me out, stopped by after a shift and saw me surrounded by papers and open tabs. He laughed and said, "Man, you're building an empire in a shoebox apartment." And for the first time in years, I actually felt like I might be. Within months, I was earning triple what I made at my warehouse job. My bank account, once a source of dread, became a symbol of possibility, numbers rising steadily, each deposit proving I wasn't the failure my parents assumed I'd be on my own. I started running the numbers late one night, calculating what I could afford. The idea hit me so suddenly I froze. I could buy something. A house. My own house. The thought terrified me, but in a good way, like standing on the edge of a cliff, realizing you finally have wings. Meanwhile, my parents still hadn't called. Not once. Lily didn't check in either. And strangely, that silence didn't hurt as much anymore. Maybe because I finally understood I didn't need their validation to build a life. But something big was coming, something that would take everything I'd built and flip the entire power dynamic of my family upside down. And I had no idea how close it was. The day I finally toured houses felt unreal, like I was pretending to be someone I'd only seen in movies. I walked through each place slowly, running my fingers over countertops, imagining what life would feel like in a space that was fully, undeniably mine. No chore lists. No guilt. No walking on eggshells around a sister who treated every inconvenience like a global crisis. Just walls that held my silence, my decisions, my future. The agent kept saying things like, "For someone your age, this is impressive," and for once, I believed it. When I found the house, everything inside me clicked. It wasn't huge, but it was warm, bright, and felt like breathing after years underwater. Sunlight spilled across the living room like it belonged there, like it was waiting for me. The floors creaked in a comforting way, and the kitchen, small, but clean, made me imagine late-night meals that didn't taste like survival. I signed the mortgage papers with hands that trembled, not from fear, but from disbelief. The pen felt heavier than it should have, like it was rewriting my entire life. Moving in was a kind of peace I didn't know I needed. I bought a Real bed, my first, built a small desk near the window, stocked the fridge with groceries that didn't come from a discount bin. Friends helped me unpack, filling the house with laughter and warmth. Marco looked around and said, "Man, this place feels like a fresh start." He was right. Every corner felt like a quiet rebellion against the family who treated me like I was temporary. But one thing I didn't do. Tell my parents. I didn't send pictures. Didn't mention it in passing. Didn't even hint at the fact that I'd gone from sleeping on a couch to owning a home. A small, vengeful part of me wanted them to find out in a way they'd never expect. A way that would make them realize exactly what they threw away when they told me to leave. And fate handed me that opportunity far sooner than I imagined. The first call from my mother came on a random Tuesday afternoon, right as I was finishing up a client project. My phone buzzed twice, then again, and when I finally picked it up, her voice was tight, too sweet, too shaky, like she was trying to swallow panic. "Honey, we need to talk." I froze. My mother never said, "We need to talk," unless something had gone terribly wrong. Before I could respond, she let out a trembling sigh and added, "It's about your sister." I stepped into my quiet hallway, leaning against the wall as she explained that Lily was going through another rough patch. Her lease fell through, her boyfriend dumped her again, her car broke down, and apparently she was mentally exhausted. Translation: her life was falling apart, and my parents were scrambling. Then came the real reason for the call: "We don't have the space for her here anymore. Your father and I were hoping, maybe she could stay with you for a while." For a moment, I didn't say anything. I just stared at my polished hardwood floors, the sunlight reflecting in perfect patterns, my home, my sanctuary, my proof that I had rebuilt myself. The irony hit me so hard I almost laughed. They had kicked me out so she could have my room. Now they wanted me to give her a room in the house I built from scratch. "I have my own place now," I said quietly. There was a pause on the other end, stunned, sharp, disbelieving. "You bought a place?" my mother whispered, like the idea physically hurt her. "That's right," I said. "And I live alone." Suddenly her tone shifted, sweetness melting into desperation. "Honey, listen, we really need your help. Lily needs stability. Just for a while. Please." I heard my dad in the background saying, "Ask him again. He'll do it. He always does." Hearing that, "He'll do it, he always does," felt like someone twisting a knife I thought I'd already pulled out. But they didn't know something important. I wasn't that son anymore. And they were about to learn that the hard way. I agreed to let them come over, not because I wanted to help, but because I wanted them to see what my life looked like without them. When they pulled into my driveway, my mom's jaw actually dropped. My dad stepped out slowly, eyes scanning the house like he was trying to figure out if it was real. Lily, of course, didn't bother hiding her entitlement. She strutted up the walkway, sunglasses on, arms crossed, already acting like she was about to be welcomed into some luxury retreat. "So, where's my room?" she asked the moment I opened the door. I didn't answer. I just let them walk inside, letting the silence do the talking. The house was warm, bright, peaceful, the exact opposite of the tension-filled home they'd thrown me out of. My mother touched the back of the couch and whispered, "I can't believe you did all this on your own," like it was some shocking miracle that I, the son they underestimated, had become an adult. We sat at the kitchen table, my table, in my home, and for the first time in my life, I controlled the conversation. "I need to make something clear," I started. "This isn't a temporary crash pad. I didn't buy this house to clean up Lily's messes." My dad immediately stiffened. "We're not asking you to clean up anything. We just need your support, like before." "Before," I repeated. "You mean when you kicked me out so she could have my room?" My mom flinched like I'd slapped her. "We thought you would understand," she said weakly. "No," I replied. "You assumed I'd sacrifice myself because I always did." Lily rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, are you seriously still hung up on that?" I needed the room. That sentence, those exact 5 words, was all the confirmation I needed. I leaned back, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Well," I said calmly, "I don't need you living here." The room fell into stunned silence. My parents exchanged a look, and I watched panic bloom across their faces. "And Lily," she erupted. But even her anger couldn't change what came next. Lily shot up from her chair so fast it scraped across the floor, her voice already rising like a siren. "You're unbelievable," she shouted. "After everything I've been through, you won't even help me for a few weeks?" She paced my kitchen like she owned it, throwing her hands around dramatically. My mom reached for her, whispering, "Calm down, sweetheart," while shooting me a desperate look, as if I was the one causing a scene. My dad glared at me like I'd broken some sacred family code by daring to have boundaries. I stayed seated, leaning back in my chair, letting them unravel. "You kicked me out," I said quietly, "so she could have my room. You didn't ask if I had a backup plan. You didn't care where I ended up. You just decided I was removable." My mother's face crumpled, tears welling up instantly. "We were trying to protect her. She was fragile. You're strong." There it was again. The same justification that had followed me my entire life like a collar I never chose. "I'm strong," I repeated. "But that doesn't mean I'll let you use me." My dad stepped forward. "Son, we made mistakes. We know that now. Just give us a chance to make things right." But the thing is, they didn't want to make things right. They wanted me to resume the role I'd outgrown. The dependable one. The fixer. The backup plan they could always rely on while Lily tore through life like a tornado. Lily crossed her arms, her voice dripping with entitlement. "So what, am I supposed to be homeless? Is that what you want?" "No," I said. "What I want is for you to face your own consequences for once." The silence that followed was thick, heavy enough to feel on my skin. My mother started crying harder. My father looked defeated. Lily looked furious, like a queen denied her throne. I walked to the front door, opened it, and said quietly, "It's time for you to go." And as they hesitated, hurt, angry, stunned, I realized this was the first time in my life I held the power. But the final shift. That was still coming. They walked out slowly, like their bodies hadn't caught up to the reality of what just happened. My dad paused on the doorstep, eyes searching mine for the version of me he used to control, the son who always said yes, who always made things easier. But that version of me was gone. My mother whispered, "Please, don't do this," her voice cracking in a way that would have shattered me years ago. Lily didn't say a word, she just shot me a look filled with bitter disbelief, like she couldn't comprehend a world where she didn't get her way. When the door finally clicked shut behind them, the silence inside my house felt different. Not empty. Not lonely. Solid. Earned. Mine. I stood there for a long moment, breathing in the quiet like air I'd never tasted before. My chest felt lighter, like I'd set down a weight I'd been carrying since childhood. Every wall in that house held the truth they couldn't erase: I built this life. I survived without them. I succeeded because they underestimated me, not despite it. Over the next weeks, the calls came. First my mom, tearful and apologetic, saying things like, "Families make mistakes, let's move past it." Then my dad, more direct, "We need to sit down. Fix things." Lily's calls were the most ridiculous, voicemails full of anger, guilt trips, and dramatic claims that I'd ruined her life. I saved none of them. I answered none of them. I kept boundaries like armor, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because forgiveness doesn't mean access. It doesn't mean letting people walk back into your life just because they want to. My world kept growing: more clients, more stability, more peace. I hosted dinners with friends, filled the house with laughter, and watched sunsets from my backyard knowing no one could take this from me. The life I built was something my family had never given me: safety, respect, freedom. They wanted back in. They begged for it. But I finally understood something. Being kicked out didn't break me. It freed me. And I'm never going back.